I love this country so much, I just don't know if it loves me back right now.
Harper, would you want to do a road trip as this new version of yourself and at the same time figure out what this all means to us?
Harper, when Will suggested the idea of making this movie to you, did you have a vision of something like this in your head? Or can you walk us through that first conversation the two of you had about?
We hadn't seen each other for a while. It was the pandemic, and I went to his backyard just to talk. He hadn't seen me since I transitioned, and he suggested this idea. And my first impression, well, I said it. I said, no, I'm not doing that. So, I mean, that was just a flat-out answer. We like to do a lot of weird projects, and this felt very weird. And I thought, yeah, maybe there's something weird about that. I should challenge myself. I've been challenging myself a lot lately, so I was like, yeah, let's maybe challenge. But then the thing that put it over the edge was that I read a lot of trans news, things that are happening. There's so many bills and so many legislation that is anti-trans in the world right now, and I thought, well, I might be able to exploit him, and so that's where that has landed.
Will, how did you come to think of Josh as the right person to help you tell this story?
Well, I had known Josh for 7 or 8 years. We've worked on a couple projects. Josh is the director of Barb and Star, Go to Vista Del Mar, which we produce along with my partner Jessica Elbaum, and so we had known Josh has also directed documentaries as well. And Rafi Mormor, one of our other producers, ironically, Jessica's husband. So this has been a great family affair here. Also had worked with Josh a lot and recommend, but it really was Harper sitting down with Josh and being comfortable with him. I think we felt that there were a lot of people in mind. We discussed a lot of names, but our main language is comedy and joking around, and Harper really needed to feel taken care of and comfortable. You guys went and had coffee or a beer and kind of made sure you were on the same page with tone, with what we wanted to address, but also to keep an eye out for the comedy and to find that fine line, which I think he so expertly struck, throughout this movie. And anyway, that's the rambling answer. Did I cover it all, you think?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. The thing is when you go out looking for directors, I immediately thought we needed queer people on the crew at the baseline. We did get that. We got trans people and queer people. But when it came to the director, I definitely had to know that person, and I had worked briefly with Josh and knew him. And through Kristen, I got a great recommendation. But what I really needed to know was, because I was going to be vulnerable in ways, I talked to other people about the project, and they would suggest ideas like, what if Will goes into a bar with a dress? And so you're looking at people who kind of think it's going to be a funny movie, and it's going to be a movie that, Will and I are going to goof off about trans shit. And I was like, no, I need to see a heart. And I think I talked to Josh for a night, and I saw something that I felt like, oh, okay, this person, I can yell at him, I can say I'm not doing that, but also, yeah, he has a heart.
Yeah.
Josh, how did you figure out what the tone would be? And like in a practical sense, did you talk it through before you started shooting? Did you find it in the editing room?
We certainly sat down and talked a little bit about what is the movie, certainly. And I think early on we had a conversation of just, when they started having conversations, it was like, oh, we all felt like, oh, this is the movie. Just the naturalistic conversations you're having, which these two, as you can see and you're experiencing right now, it always starts with a joke and then maybe dips down into something real, and then if it gets too real, back to a joke. And so finding that rhythm was important. We had 230, 40 hours of footage. It was overwhelming at first. I think I saw a 5-hour cut and I was like, this is really good. But it was really important to me that we struck the right balance. I just ultimately use their relationship as my sort of guiding light. I'm a very big believer in the expression that laughter is the shortest distance between two people. And so I know that, I think as Will was saying there, kind of love language with one another is comedy, but I also wanted to make sure that the language that I was putting in the film and trying to kind of bring people into the fold, into the film, was certainly comedy forward, because if it wasn't, it would be disingenuous to who these two incredibly brilliant comedians are. But at the same time, making sure that we were telling a real story, and because there was real depth and real heart. And we just realized, like, let's start building the framework of this film with just what I would call dramatic moments of challenge, of growth, of struggle, and ultimately of joy, and know that once those pieces are in place, I can always go back to the edit and find moments of comedy, because they're constantly funny. So that was the process, and then just finding the right rhythm just takes time when you're editing.
It's very palpable, your sense of wanting to protect your friend physically and emotionally, but also you have made movies for years, you know what makes a good story, and sometimes that's uncomfortable moments. So how did you kind of juggle those two things when you were thinking about the film?
It was just my job to listen. And that's just how I governed myself through the whole thing. There were moments, one of my favorite scenes is the moment at the Grand Canyon where where Harper's actually, they switch roles. Harper's become therapist to this woman who's carried this burden for the longest time. And at one point, I think Harper was like, oh no, I had a therapist who once gave me bad advice. My comedy brain in that moment almost kicked in, and I almost went, wait, are you that therapist? Are you the same therapist?
Oh my God.
I know. I'm like, nope, be quiet. This is an amazing moment. Just shut up.
I would have not stopped. I would have been all over that.
But we would have rolled, but I
Yeah.
was like, no, something crazy, something magical is happening here. We just randomly picked this couple to take our photo, and then she's making amends in this moment. And so I had to kind of, it just became apparent though when it was just time to take a back seat and listen to my friend.
Deserved.
Harper, was it you who picked the spots on the itinerary, or how did y'all figure out where?
Only because Iowa City and the desert, the house in the desert, were two places, and also the winter. So I've gone across the country every possible.
Don't forget your horrible gambling addiction. That's why we stopped in Las Vegas.
We stopped in Vegas.
Yes.
Because I had to gamble. No. But so my sister's in Iowa City, and then I love 40 across the country, but it's also, that was a weather thing, really. I wanted to be able to get out of the car and sit in those chairs, which is what I normally do. And then that also was a direct route to the house in the desert. I think going through the mountains probably would have been cold and miserable, and so beautiful.
And sometimes the day took you to, it seems like some uncomfortable places. Like I'm thinking of the steak scene. That's a moment where you I found myself nervous watching, like, how is this going to go? And I'm curious for the two of you who were sitting in that spot, how did it feel in the moment?
It was a palpable feeling. When you walk in there, one, there's the normal fishbowl of being around Will and a lot of people taking photos, but this was a hyper version. We were on a stage, and then you can see everyone on their phone, and you're like, well, what are they? They're saying, hey, my friend's down at the steakhouse, you should come. Are they saying what we saw? Many of these tweets did say. So yeah, it was from pretty right when we walked in, it was a feeling of oh, this environment's not going to be
And
fun.
I think we thought it was just going to be just a benign stop,
thing.
a goofy stunt to try to eat this steak.
It's funny because we didn't do a lot of stunts. Obviously, going into the bar by myself was an idea that we had. Going to the basketball game was just an idea that we had before. Like, we should go to a basketball game. But we didn't do a lot of stunty things like that. And it's funny that we did do one, and it turns out not good.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if when you were making this or deciding to make this, you ever thought about the person who's like, it's Friday night, they've just watched like Old School or something, and the services, you might also like Will and Harper. And they may be discovering a totally new side of you and a totally new person in Harper. Like, what do you think about that part of the potential audience for this?
I think it's super exciting. I think that's when we finally kind of settled in and said, okay, let's do it. It was really Harper who was like, I would love to try to get across to those fans of yours who would typically watch a Step Brothers, an Old School, any of those movies, just to see if there's an entry point there for anyone to just watch this on a lark and then hopefully, open up that side of their brain to kind of, see that it's not such a scary world, and that it to just kind of take some of the mysticism out of it, and it's just two friends having a conversation, and it's really an exercise in advocacy but also civility. And I think we're just dying to see acts of civility right now. We want to kind of get back to a time where, if your neighbor knocks on your door and asks for a cup of sugar or eggs, you don't say, "What's your political party?" You say, "Oh yeah, you're baking a cake? I sure am. Oh, da-da-da." That should be 10th on the list. And I think this is kind of showing that there's still hope out there to have conversations.
Harper, how do you feel about that Friday night viewer who clicks?
I mean, that's why I did it. To me, it's about people who are afraid of the subject, but more importantly, people who are afraid of the subject because it might be in their house, or it might be at their workplace, or it might be, and to know that to talk about it, to also, I think it's like, I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, that's too bad that this person has to deal with this torture, this trauma of being trans. And that's ridiculous. If you allow someone to be trans, they are their best selves. It is a joyful thing. And so to allow your child or your friend or whatever that space to be who they are, you're only making it a better world for yourself, for them, for everyone. So yeah, I just hope that's what people get out of it. It's like, it's not that there's nothing wrong with being trans. That's just the stupidest thing in the world. It's actually that there's something so right with it if you are trans. So we need to let that out there.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.